Hi Year 11. In this video we'll be looking at Mametz Wood by Owen Shears. So make sure you have your anthologies or paper copies of the poem and a pen or pencil handy. Again, try and watch a reading of this before we start, and remember, as well as notes, write down any questions you have about things you don't quite understand. Mametz Wood is a poem about a specific area where battles were fought during the Somme in World War I. The Somme saw over 1 million men wounded or killed and is one of the bloodiest battles in history. Many of the dead were never named and they were never given a proper funeral, but Owen Shears writes here about a group of men, 20 men, who were buried together and their arms were interlinked, and that's how their skeletons were found. So this poem seems to be trying to change the fact that they didn't have a proper funeral, they just had this makeshift funeral, and he's celebrating their lives and giving the murdered soldiers a voice. It's written to show the importance of historical conflict and emphasise how relevant the past still is. Another thing the poem does is show conflict between life and death, sort of an alternative view that we don't really think about too much. Structurally, this poem is organised into tercets, and that's a posh term for 3-line stanzas. However, the lines vary just like out of the blue, suggesting maybe the uneven ploughed ground through these longer lines. A feature that we haven't seen before, enjambment between stanzas, occurs in a couple of the stanzas, and to me this could reflect either the fragmented, broken bodies in the ground or possibly how history is spilling over into the present day. This is further reinforced by enjambment inside the stanzas. You might want to pause the video here so you can have a little look and underline some examples of this. Another thing to consider is the sentence length. Although line length varies, sentences are almost always long, and there's lots of commas and clauses, so like extra bits of information used in the sentences. This encourages the reader to speak slowly and helps create a really sad, reflective tone. Finally, the poem is chronological, so it's in time order, from the farmers in the past who found little bits of bones up to the uncovering of the 20 linked bodies this morning. Strangely, all of the poem is set in the present, but all of the poem is about and very closely linked to the past, so that again really stresses the importance of history and its impact on our life now. So this poem is full of really interesting images and there's plenty to pick apart. I'll go through a few, but I really encourage you to research, watch some videos on YouTube and use your brain to pick apart some of those that I don't cover. Remember, when interpreting, as long as you back up your ideas, you are right. A really strong and pertinent image within the poem is the personification of the earth. It says, "The earth stood sentinel, reaching back into itself for a reminder of what happened." Sentinel means a soldier or a guard whose job is just to keep watch, almost as if the earth had been protecting the bodies until the right time to send them back to the surface and remind us and the farmers of the past. The image then changes on the next line. It says, "like a wound working a foreign body to the surface of the skin." This becomes more critical of conflict, as if the foreign body, the bodies of the men, don't actually belong in the earth, maybe because they haven't been given a proper funeral. So the earth is pushing them out and rejecting them. Shears also uses lots of metaphors to describe the skeletons. He creates really strong, vivid images. First he says they are a broken mosaic. And a mosaic is like a beautiful piece of artwork, so he could be valuing their life and valuing them for the beauty, but then he also includes the word broken, and Shears is really emphasising the state of the body, so in my mind they're in like hundreds of tiny pieces. He also says they are mid-dance macabre. The skeletons aren't actually dancing, but lends almost a joyful feeling and a bit of like celebration to the poem. Another thing to consider is that the dance macabre refers to another type of art in which skeletons and sometimes the living would be painted dancing with death, showing again that conflict between life and death and how you never really know when death will be coming, when your life will end. Sounds are also used to great effect in the poem, so there's not a lot of rhyme, but Shears has used alliterative words, so there's words with the same sounds at the beginning, particularly ones with plosives, and these are sounds that explode from your mouth and sound quite harsh, so T's and B's and P's. You normally get them in a lot of swear words. So we have plough and blades and backbone, blown and broken. They almost create the sounds that could be echoing gunfire. Finally, as always, I like to pick up on a few interesting words. And here what really stands out is that Shears has used a semantic field of value. So a semantic field is just a few words which build together to create one image. Here he says chit, which is like an IOU, china, which is the delicate and expensive pottery, relic, something normally historical and really important, bird's egg, the source of life, and as we said earlier, mosaic, like an art form. This could be just reinforcing how important and valuable life is. But if you think about those words again, you might start to see how most of them are fragile and delicate too. So that could be another important message that Shears is conveying. So for emotion, Shears' tone is quite mournful and sad. We see this through the descriptions of the dead and through the controlled slow rhythm, the lack of rhyme. He also seems to be filled with regret, so that one, the soldiers were not allowed a proper burial, and also the soldiers were more than likely forced into this. So think about lines like told to walk, not run. These men were probably just the playing pieces of somebody more powerful. However, these negative emotions are balanced with a sort of celebration of the soldiers' lives through the images of both singing and dancing. Just like we did with Out of the Blue, I'd like you to jot down 2 or 3 words to describe how it makes you feel, and then expand upon them, so explain why the poem makes you feel how it does. So here are a few keywords for you. We've got reflection, battlefield, injustice, memories, elegy, funeral, violence, alliteration and metaphors. Try and get these down into your notes somewhere. So most of them we've covered, but you might want to think about words like injustice and elegy. So elegy is like a funeral song or a dedication, and see if you can tie that in anywhere. If you don't get the words, either look them up on Google or remember to ask me next lesson. And now's your chance to do a bit of extra research. So there's some really great videos and again some great websites with lots of interpretations and notes on this poem. I'll link you to them in the summary box again, or you can just type in the websites that I've put up here. So finally, here's the poem with all the key ideas, images and words highlighted. Have a read through, make sure these are highlighted on your copy, and then try to give some of your own interpretations and ideas to these. Thanks for listening and making your notes, and I will see you next lesson.